St. John, New Brunswick, a port city on the Bay of Fundy, the hub of Atlantic Canada, home to the highest tides in the world, and some say a sea monster known to the locals as Ug Wug.
My name is Julia Wright, and I am a researcher of the unknown and a CBC reporter as well, and host. Well, according to legend, in some of the primary source documents that we've been able to find, the name Ug Wug is an Inuit word that means friendly animal. At least that's what the people who wrote the story said. However, if you do your own research into this, there's no evidence to suggest that this is actually an indigenous word. It seems to just be these nonsense syllables, which have been kind of purported to be an Inuit language that means friendly animal. That's what they say that it means.
These rushing waters, filled with deadly currents and whirlpools, are known as the Reversing Falls. They are said to be the home of Ugwug, a sea monster reportedly 30 meters long, half seal and half salmon, fierce glowing red eyes, and a tremendous appetite.
Well, I first became aware of the Ugwug in this undated manuscript that I found at the St. John Free Public Library. And it was a typewritten manuscript. I found it in one of the vertical files there. And it had no information about where it came from or when it was written. But it included all these stories about the Ugwug and some of the legends that surround it.
Cultures from all over the world have religious and metaphorical references to supernatural creatures, from the Mayans and their myth of White Chivo, a half-man, half-beast with glowing red eyes, said to prey upon livestock, or the En-Nadaha, known to the Egyptians as a female-like spirit who calls men to the waters of the Nile to their death. Perhaps some of the most noteworthy examples are spread across the indigenous peoples of North America. Each community holds its own accounting of supernatural creatures and lore. Many are very similar, such as stories of the Sasquatch, skinwalkers, or even giants.
The myths and legends are people or tells where they came from, and some of them might not make sense to us today, but there are a lot of truth to the stories that we hear from long ago. And long ago, they would teach people different lessons that they had to learn through life. They would also keep everyone entertained in the fire at night. A lot of the Glutskub stories are people would sing the stories. That's how fluent in the language they were. So it helps in not only the telling of the story, but it helps in their language, and I guess it gives people a sense of where they came from and who they are.
Although there is no physical proof of such a creature, it does not stop rumors of its existence.
Well, the origins of the Ugwug are really kind of murky as Reversing Falls, you might say. The legend of Ugwug goes all the way back to the time of Champlain, so that would be like the 17th century or even before that. Now, I wasn't able to independently verify this, and what I found is that most of the references that I could date to the Ugwug go back to like the 1950s, where I think the legend came from. There was this gentleman named J.M. Robinson who ran the Reversing Falls Tourist Bureau and restaurant back in the 1950s. He was kind of a storyteller. He was a very creative guy. And it seems to me that around that time in the 50s and 60s was when J.M. Robinson, I think, promoted that early legend and commissioned the drawing of the Ugwug that I was able to sort of find and that hung on the wall in the Tourist Bureau for a while.
Others claim Ugwug is the same creature that inhabits another body of water in New Brunswick, Lake Utopia. In the depths of these frigid and deep waters, another monstrous legend is known to lurk, known to local residents as Old Ned, and sightings of this Lake Utopia monster date back to the 1800s.
Okay, so Old Ned is the sea monster who lives in Lake Utopia. And Old Ned has been sighted for like 200 years. There are all kinds of legends surrounding this. It's almost like a mass of tentacles, and some people say it looks like eels that are all like balled up together. Anyway, legends of this have been circulating since the old days of paper milling on Lake Utopia.
Some have even proposed a vast labyrinth of tunnels and caves that connect Lake Utopia to the Reversing Falls and the Bay of Fundy.
And where the Ugwug comes into this story is that there is a theory that Old Ned is actually a sea monster from the Bay of Fundy that made its way into Lake Utopia through underground caverns. So Dorothy Dearborn talks about this in her book about sea monsters and actually suggests that Old Ned is a sea monster who somehow got lost or made its way into Lake Utopia. So it could be a form of Ugwug, actually. We really don't know.
These rumors are fueled by reports of people entering the waters of Lake Utopia only to be found drowned in the reversing falls.
Apparently, a scuba diver went down to the riverbed in Reversing Falls, and he dove down about 100 meters, and whatever he saw down there scared him so much that when he came to the surface, his hair, which had previously been jet black, was bright white. And he never talked about what he saw or what terrified him so much. I mean, people theorize that he may have seen the bodies of dead people who drowned in the falls, but the other theory is that he saw the Ugwug. He never talked about it, and he died not long afterward. On the east side of St. John, there's a body of water called Lawler Lake. Apparently, a diver went down into that body of water and never came out. And his body was found in Reversing Falls. So there's a theory that there are these underground networks of caves that run under the water, connecting the Kennebecasis River, connecting the Bay of Fundy, that no one has really charted or understands. So there are a lot of mysteries here.
Is it possible such strange creatures could actually exist? Scientists have only documented a very small amount of the ocean depths. It is said we know more about the surface of the moon than we do our ocean's floors. Over recent years, rare and new aquatic life has washed up on beaches around the world. Monstrous-looking fish that look like aliens from a Hollywood movie. Sightings of merfolk have been rising as well. Are all of these sightings misidentification or hoaxes? Mainstream academia has long refused to entertain the idea of cryptozoology and strange phenomenon like Bigfoot or UFOs, claiming it to be pseudoscience at best. However, in the past few years, the U.S. government has admitted to the existence of UFOs. Could a 30-meter, half-seal, half-salmon sea creature survive undetected in the Bay of Fundy? If Ugwug were real, how has it evaded detection? Where did it come from?
Well, according to legend, when the tide is out and the moon is full, and when the shad run through Reversing Falls into the river, that is when the Ugwug appears. But there's a key part of this ritual to summon this mythological beast, and it involves a quart of moonshine that you're supposed to bring with you. And if you ask me, the quart of moonshine is like the most important piece. If you don't have the moonshine, you're probably not going to see the Ugwug.
David D. Archibald writes,
Ugwug is still found in the lower basin below the whirlpools, and will appear during certain times of the year if one employs the following definite method. The time must be early in the spring during the shab run. The tide must be on the ebb. Remember, time and tide wait for no man. And there are two other essential ingredients: an evening full of moonlight and a quart full of moonshine. After all necessities have been given proper attention, Ugwug will appear.
Is Ugwug simply a story to add excitement to visiting tourists? Once displayed proudly as a mural on the wall of the Reversing Falls trading post, Ugwug's legend has faded somewhat over the years.
I'm Frances Hellier, and I lived in St. John from 1993 until 2002. The first time I ever learned about Ugwug in the research section of the St. John Regional Public Library, and there was a manila folder, and I opened it, and there was an old newspaper clipping, the shape of the animal, and then a legend. And I read it and I thought, well, that's kind of funny. Ugwug was probably my favorite song to sing. I wrote, it's a children's song. Don't remember if I ever met a child who knew anything about Ugwug. After they saw one of my shows, they knew Ugwug. Once upon a time, many years ago, lived a creature, so they say, hidden in the caves of reversing falls. Who knows, he may still be there today. Ug Wug, Ug Wug, lies in the sun or he goes for a swim. Ug Wug, Ug Wug, oh, how I wish I could see him. He's partly salmon and partly seal, 30 meters from end to end. Playing in the whirlpools of reversing falls, he's a fishy, splishy, splashy friend. Ug Wug, Ug Wug, lies in the sun or he goes for a swim. Ug Wug, Ug Wug, oh, how I wish I could see him. Oh, how I wish I could see him.
Shamcook, New Brunswick, 2022. The legend of Ugwug is having new life breathed into it. Drawn to its studio's owner, producer, and director, Brian Finley, along with his son, Evan Finley, have been filming a fictional television series inspired by Ugwug. Their series is about a little girl named Ariel, played by Brian's 8-year-old daughter, who discovers Ugwug while on a summer vacation with her mother, Chris Ann.
The name of the show is called The Ugwug. It's about a little girl named Ariel walking across a beach looking for treasures that got washed up onto the shore. And she stumbles upon this legendary sea creature called Ugwug. And then later on they become friends. And then the little girl needs to save Ugwug for being captured in an aquarium so Mr. Green can make money. She is very friendly, and she has the head of a seal, body of a salmon, tail of a mermaid, and ears of a dog, like a chocolate lab. No, but I may have, because I've seen pictures on Google of sea creatures, and there's live ones. It could be a sea creature, it could be like a rock, or it could just be a whale fin or something. I don't know. Yes, I am very excited, and I didn't really expect it to actually be a thing. Like, I was just sitting on the couch one day, and my dad just came in and told me that our show actually was gonna be a thing. So, yay.
This series is the first of its kind to be filmed in New Brunswick, and although production resources are limited, state-of-the-art visual effect techniques and tools are being used to bring Ugwug to life. Brian Finley explains.
So I grew up right here in the St. John and surrounding area, and I've always been into things like Bigfoot and UFO and strange supernatural cryptid creatures, but not once did I ever hear of anything called the Ugwug, or every time I drove over the reversing falls, know that there was a 30-meter long sea monster living right underneath the bridge. I had no idea about any of this until we went researching for a new documentary project. I came across the article, the CBC article, written by Julia Wright, and my imagination was just overtaken with ideas. And within a night, I came up with the whole story for Ugwug, designed it to be my daughter's show, so she would play the main character, Ariel. Her name is Ariel, so it's a good first-time acting gig to play yourself. And before you know it, we pitched it, it got greenlit, and we found ourselves in a position of, all of a sudden, we have to produce, for the first time ever in New Brunswick, a TV show that features a CGI animated creature with live action actors. No problem, we got this. So to make a show like Ugwug, where you're dealing with a CGI character, you're dealing with live action actors, and you're dealing with settings that are mostly involving natural lighting sources and that type of thing, you've got to really kind of figure out how to make it look good without having the big budget of Hollywood. And believe me, we did not have a big budget for this production. One of our biggest problems in the beginning was how long it took to render a single frame of Ugwug. In the beginning, we were at 4 to 7 hours. And part of that had to do with computer power. Part of it had to do with the way the fur was initially set up. And it took us months of problem solving and sending the model back to artists to have them rework things. And it took a very special sponsor to come on board and help double our computer processing power. And because of that, that is what really helped us get Ugwug to the finish line. And we're very grateful. Now, just because Ugwug was a micro budget production, that's independent film speak for we didn't have a lot of money, doesn't mean we weren't using technology that is used on some of Hollywood's biggest films. We were using 3D animation software. We were taking live action shots and doing 3D camera tracking so that we could place Ugwug correctly within the scene. Now, on the flip side of that, we were also using low-end technology. Such as taking a giant sculpted head, you can see it over my shoulder, and we were screwing that on the end of a pole, and we were having the actors, we were sticking it in their face, and that was Ugwug. That's all they had to act with, which makes acting so much harder because this green paper mache head is not emoting back to you. But we were so lucky to have the head sculpted by Melissa Kennedy, one of my favorite New Brunswick sculptors, by the way. Check her out. She did a small one for us as a proof of concept, then this great big giant one. And because of that, we were able to have this physical representation of this giant sea monster and where it's going to be in the space for eye lines and, you know, that type of thing. So it worked out quite well. So one of our actors, comedian James Mullinger, who is a very proud St. John resident, Rosse resident, depending on which side of what border you're on, he has a great bit about it. But I wrote Ugwug with a character named Mr. Green in mind for James Mullinger way before I had even asked him if he would be willing to take on the role. And part of it had to do with I knew the energy that James gave off on stage. And that's what I wanted for Mr. Green, but in a villain kind of sense. And boy, did James deliver. Every day on set, he just showed up with exuding this energy of, you know, I'm going to capture Ugwug and make money. You know, he was fantastic. And then we have Ariel, who the show was written for her and had never acted before. And after her first day on set, when she almost wanted to quit because her and I were button heads, we got all that fixed up. And then on her second day on set and every day after, boom, 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 she got through every scene. The first time acting, I was so proud of her. And my wife as well, who had never acted and has no interest really being in front of the camera or even being part of this business called show, she agreed to do the role of mom on Ugwug just because Ariel had basically guilt tripped her into it. And she did a great job too. We got to work with George Paul, who plays Quimu, a monster researcher that is an old friend of Ugwug and an old friend of Mr. Vanderzee, played by Sheldon Garland. Now, George was great because he brought some of his singing skill to the role, and he helped us find some tremendous, beautiful river spots to film on. And I'm so grateful that we were able to work with him. Sheldon brought such a professional approach to his character as well. He gives off a lot of heart as Mr. Vanderzee and worked really well off of Ariel. Their scenes were very much like a buddy kind of thing. And that's what I wanted, because in the story, they are really part of a special club. They are two people who know about Ugwug, and not many people do, and they both have one of Ugwug's scales, and they both wear it as a necklace. And if you watch the show, you find out the Ugwug is very particular about who she lets find one of her scales. To be honest, I'm really proud of what the crew and the cast and the artists behind the scenes have all come together to make on this micro-budget, independent film style production. If you watch it yourself, I think you'll be quite impressed too. It's really quite charming.